Hey, everybody. Welcome to Parent Conversations for the first Monday in May. And in case you didn't remember, like a couple people I talked to yesterday, next Sunday is Mother's Day. Don't forget, get on that now. They sell more flowers for Mother's Day than any other time. So if you're going to send your mom flowers, you need to order soon. We wanted to give a shout out to Bear River Health Departments, Davis County Health Department, and Central Utah Public Health Departments for the grants that make parent conversations possible. We're going to be joined in a few minutes by Dr. Kim Dwyer. She's doing a 4-week series on mindfulness. And of course, because I'm in front of the camera, all of a sudden, I can't remember what today we're talking about. So hey, Shirley, if you have a second, another window open, see if you can find it. But I am going to talk about something else while she does that. We have a discovery hunt for the month of May because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I need to slow down. Sorry, guys. Lots on my brain and it's all falling out my mouth too quickly. So if you
mindful parenting,
thank you. Mindful parenting today. If you have not ever done a discovery hunt with us before, you are going to want to download the Goose Chase app. I will show you how cute it is, their little logo. It is right there. Everybody see Goose Chase, the little orange box with a couple of goose feet on it. Download Goose Chase. You can create an account or not. You don't have to recreate an account to play. And then you're going to want to search with the game code. Hold on a second. That's also escaped me.
breathe
Breathe. Thank you. Breathe. And
with an E at the end.
Yes, breathe with an E at the end. So there's lots of fun activities in there to engage yourself and your family with getting acquainted with mindfulness. So there's a lot of talk about mindfulness going on throughout the world right now. It is a good way to just take a step back from the busyness of life and de-stress. There's lots of good books about it. And our guest speaker today, Dr. Kim Dwyer, specializes in mindfulness on multiple fronts. And today we're going to talk about it in, like I said, mindful parenting. So, Shirley, should we do one of?
Yeah, well, I would love to hear if those of us that are here, if we've had any experience, if we did some mindful anything this past week and what the experience was. And then, yeah, let's definitely try a mindful experience.
Okay. If Catherine wants to share, I'll let her share first, but if not, I will go ahead. Catherine, might you want to share if you did anything this week? And you might be just looking for your mute button. So if you do, join in when you're ready. So I read a couple of years ago, I read a book about mindfulness. It's called The Mindfulness Solution. And what I do remember, it's been a little while, and I tend to not always remember everything I read. I think I'm probably normal that way. Is you really pay attention to the 5 senses about what you're doing right now. So the other day, I had to run some errands. It was toward the end of last week, finishing a really busy week. And as I was driving, I just paid attention to how the steering wheel felt in my hands. I turned off the radio, and I'm big into listening to the radio all the time. And I just took some deep breaths, and I just tried to concentrate on the experience of driving, not let my phone distract me like I know it can in this day and age where I'm always trying to multitask. And unfortunately, we're not very productive when we're multitasking. Studies have shown that if you can just single task, you'd actually be more productive and get things done quicker. So I put my phone, didn't touch my phone, and just drove. And like I said, paid attention to how the steering wheel felt in my hands. I paid attention to my foot on the gas pedal. And I just paid attention to driving while I was breathing. And it did have a little bit of a calming effect. I kept having to remind myself that that's what I was doing because my brain kept trying to wander. But that was my experience this week. Shirley, did you try anything?
So my big thing is breathing. I like to really pay attention to my breathing when I'm stressed and just kind of breathe in and breathe out and then breathe in longer. I think I've mentioned that before, that I kind of count the breaths. The other thing that I've been really aware of this week, so Dr. Dwyer last week mentioned the kind of giving the definition to things. I don't remember exactly what it was that she said, but it really reminded me of something that I learned many years ago, where it was Marianne Williamson. And actually with her, with her book, and she did there was like a 30-day series. I think I only made it through like 5 days. But I have remembered this for like decades. For an entire day, you were supposed to just, everything that you saw, basically say, that table only has the meaning that I give to it. That lamp only has the meaning that I give to it. And so I found myself doing that again this week, after something that Dr. Dwyer said last week. I've just really been aware that, what, the things around me only have the meaning that I give to it. So if I find myself not happy about something, I can change the meaning that I give to that. I can choose to give the meaning that's going to serve my life better. So anyway, so I've been very aware of that this week and shared with Rick and stuff, because it's just really been on my mind that, all of these, everything around me, and it's not just stuff, it's, interactions and relationships. It has the meaning that we give to it.
That's true. That's a very powerful thing. And I can see that might be related to, we'll say, the law of attraction in a way. Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah. So that's cool. That's cool. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Shirley, before I open it up to Catherine again and see if she might want to share something? You don't have to, Catherine, or you can type it in the chat if you do. Sorry to keep putting you on the spot. But I am opening up the mindfulness hunt on the Goose Chase app on my phone as we speak. So there are a few introductory missions like all of our hunts have. And let's go to, how about 1, 2, 3, breathe. Does that sound like a good one?
Yes, it does.
Okay, we have about 4 more minutes, and I anticipate Dr. Dwyer joining us. And next week, she will be here at noon. She just had conflicts for the first 2 weeks, but we anticipate her at noon next week and the following week. So 1, 2, 3, breathe. Count while you are breathing. This is what we were talking about. Practice what it's like to take a deep breath, count to 5, then release in the same slow fashion. This can become a playful interaction. Can you breathe in for 3 seconds long, or how slowly can you release your air? And then to submit the evidence, is share a short video of our new breathing skills. So the counting the breath is always good. And are you sharing your screen, Shirley?
I am.
Awesome. Okay.
Let's see, but can you see it? Can you see the mindfulness hunt?
Yeah, you're on there. So scroll down to 1, 2, 3, breathe. This is the back end, everybody.
Yeah, so here you can see just some of the different, missions that we have. Okay, so let's do the breathing.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to challenge you, if you are joining with us, to breathe in. Let's start with 4. And I'm going to challenge you to breathe out for 8. So as Dr. Dwyer told us last week, we want to sit comfortably. She says, don't lie down, because you're not training your body to go to sleep. You're training your body to be mindful and just kind of reset. So we're going to sit straight in our chairs. I'm going to close my eyes and take off my glasses because I like that. And don't wear your shoulders as earrings. That's something we talk about in yoga all the time. And we're going to breathe in for 4 and then out for 8, whatever your count is. Let's do it one more time. That felt so good. I want to do it one more time. That always has a really calming effect on me, especially if I concentrate on the numbers, because my brain has a tendency to want to run with life and what I've got going on. If I can just focus on counting, I count that as a success. Anybody want to share with us?
One thing I have noticed with myself, you mentioned, you're going to challenge us to breathe out longer. One thing I have noticed, I can kind of tell where I am with my life by doing the breathing, the way I describe, where I breathe in for 4, out for 4, in for 8, out for 8, in for 12. I can tell where I am in life by how easy it is when I'm stressed and kind of frantic and whatever. It's harder for me to breathe in. I can breathe out forever, but I can't take as much in. But when my life is balanced, it's much easier for both, it's more balanced. So I can tell from my breathing whether or not I am balanced, because if I find it's way, it's a lot easier to breathe out than it is to breathe in. I'm not wanting to take into my life. It's like I'm so stressed that I can't, I can't take in. I'm just wanting to get out. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And that's a very mindful thing that you've learned about yourself. I think being mindful, and I'm not a therapist or anything, it's just going off my own experience. Taking some time to learn about your body is very beneficial. I've had some experiences in the last year or two that have taught me to listen to what my body is telling me. If I'm having moments of anxiety and things like that. And that is another form of mindfulness. It can't be, it might not be clinical, but I still think it's very helpful. So we need to slow down long enough to pay attention to what's going on and learn to recognize those things about ourselves. Yay. Hi, Dr. Dwyer. We're glad to see you.
Hello.
And Shirley's gonna stop sharing her screen.
Yes, I was just going to scroll through this a little bit. You can see the different the different adventures, as we call them, the different missions that are part of this hunt. So yeah, lots of different things. And and if Dr. Dwyer wants to add anything to this, we'll have her let us know. So
yeah, while we're waiting for you, we were talking about each of us, and those of us that tried to have some conscious mindfulness last week. And then we did a little bit of breathing because I like that part. We are ready to turn it over to you if you're ready to take it on.
I am. And yeah, and hopefully we can kind of keep, I'm happy as long as you guys are, if people keep mics on and make it more of a conversation. That makes the time a little bit more interesting, I think, if we can use people's own examples and all that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But if you want to type in the chat, I'm happy to read it. So I will keep my mic on the entire time.
Sounds good. So, and forgive me for a moment because I'm hopping from one thing to another. I think we said today we're going to focus on mindfulness in parenting, correct?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, let's start with caveat that this is a huge topic. And there are entire books written on mindful parenting, with titles very similar to that. But if we go back to the idea that mindfulness is anything that we're doing that's bringing us into the present moment without judgment, it's pulling our attention into the present moment. I think we can pretty quickly move into like why that can be really helpful in parenting situations. So when we're in any kind of an interaction, if we are in the mindfulness literature, they talk a lot about beginner's mind. So coming back to the idea of I've never been in this situation before. This is something that's fresh and new, and the theme of curiosity comes up a lot, right? So if I can be curious about what's unfolding around me, it helps put you into a different mindset to interact with whoever you're interacting with, be it other adults, your children, coworkers, that whoever it is that's in your world. So the trouble that we get in a lot of the times is in a kind of a time-saving effort, our brain is very quickly overlaying other situations that are similar. And sometimes that's helpful and sometimes that's not helpful at all. So, if we can bring ourselves back to the situation at present and not get too caught up in the stories and the narratives about the last time this happened, or this is the 27th time I've had to go through this situation. The problem with that narrative is our emotions, both our physiological sensations and the meaning that we interpret to them about why those emotions are showing up, they go with that narrative. So that narrative is here in our brain. It might not be the reality that's around us, but when we get attached to that narrative, that story, then our emotions go with it, which can, if we're not intentional, that can also drive our behavior and our actions. So suddenly, if you've been in a situation where suddenly you're popping off at somebody and you're not quite sure why you're quite so angry, it's probably from some past experience that was similar that got activated by the new situation. So mindfulness gives us an opportunity to step back a little bit from that and to decide, is this a narrative I want to listen to right now? Is this a narrative that would be helpful to me right now? Is this my reality? Am I responding to things that are truly going on around me, or am I responding to some imagined scenario that's in my head? And it's easy to sit here calm in my desk chair and talk about that. It's a different thing when we're out there living our lives, and we all get emotionally activated. So that's pretty normal. So
I've actually had a lot of that this week. It's interesting. And it wasn't even parent-child relationships. It was just, I have a friend that's struggling and she's been sharing some stuff with me, and it's because I've been through something similar, and her feelings kind of triggered some old feelings. We're talking 25 years old.
Yeah.
And so it's a neural pathway just jumps and it goes down, even though I haven't been down that neural pathway in a long time. I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah. And it's all in there. And like to use that, Megan, since you brought that up as an example. So mindfulness would, if we're applying it to that, would help to like notice like these emotions are coming up for me, and then to, like I always say, like get curious about it. Like, I wonder why I'm feeling that way right now. Can I just sit with it and understand those emotions, understand what the connection is, to whatever the situation is, and then, really ask myself, is this about this situation in front of me, or is this about other things? And it takes a lot of introspection and reflection and sitting with it to really make those connections sometimes. And that's all okay. And then, once we're clear, we have more clarity on it, then we can decide like, okay, what do I need to do? Like, is this a situation where, my stuff is past and it's good and I'm fine with it? It just got activated by whatever the situation is. Is there something there to like work through? Do I, and work through could mean just in your own head. Like, do I just need to reformulate, what that situation was? Because the benefit of age is that we're looking at things as, a different person. Like, I'm a different person now than I was 25 years ago, for sure. And I'm sure you are as well,
Oh yeah.
So like we can look at it and, the lens of me at this age is going to look at the decisions I made, in my 20s, a whole lot different than, than I do now with this slightly more mature decade that I'm in. So
slightly more mature. Yeah. Thanks.
Yes. With this wisdom that I have gained from several more decades under my belt. So
That's right. That's right.
yeah. So, the one of the first pieces is to notice like the activation. And a lot of times it's the physiological activation that we notice, like my heart's beating really fast, my face is feeling flushed, like any, that strong emotional content, whether it's positive or negative, it tends to activate fight or flight response. Usually more so if it's negative, but things like excitement, which generally is kind of positive, that will also activate those, those same changes in our body and our physiology. So noticing, okay, I'm noticing my heart pounding, I'm noticing my face feels hot and flushed. Or for some people, they notice their behavior more. I'm noticing that I'm tripping over my words, or I'm talking really fast, or I'm noticing muscle tension and that I just want to take my coffee cup and slam it down on my desk. Like those are all normal things that happen when muscles tense up in your body and like we want to discharge that energy. So if you can recognize like here are the signs and use the feedback, like maybe I notice that my voice is getting shrill, or maybe I notice when I interact with my child and my voice gets higher, I'm communicating somehow through my voice, my tone of voice, that I'm irritated. Maybe this is the response I tend to get from my child. And then that becomes the feedback of, okay, we have a opportunity to stop and to ask, like, is this what is helpful to us right now? And I could give you like a bajillion, I have 3 children. I could give you a bajillion examples of times when we've activated each other, because that's what happens when you have
Oh,
children.
yeah, and it doesn't stop when they become adults either, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, noticing what the red flags are. Like, and I can't remember the name of the woman. There's a program called Brainwise. The name will probably come to me in a minute, but she's a psychologist, also in the Denver area, that put this curriculum together for school-based like psychoeducation, prevention kind of information. But she uses the analogy of an elevator. So if you're on like, the ground floor, you're in the lobby of the building, like you're pretty calm, and your elevator's got 10 stories. And, there's some point that I think of as the point of no return. It's not truly the point of no return. It's the point of more difficult return, right? So maybe that's the seventh. Yeah, maybe that's the 7th floor for you, right? If you get to the 7th floor, it's like, now I'm just like spewing, nonsense, and I'm activated, and I'm, I can't, it's harder. Not that you can't settle down, you can always settle down, but it's harder to right the ship and, get the elevator back down to the ground floor. So if we can notice, like, what are the signs, and maybe 1st floor, 2nd floor, lobby, 0, 1, and 2, maybe those are great places to hang out, because sometimes a little bit of activation is good. It gives us energy to get stuff done. If we have a little bit of, whether it's nervous energy or I don't even call it anger at that point, but it's more like, it's almost like advocacy, right? Like, this is something I'm fired up about because it means a lot to me. So it energizes me to do the things I need to do. So maybe when we're on those floors, we're just fine. Maybe once we hit like the 4th, 5th floor, okay, now it's not going in such a great direction. So what are my signs that I'm starting to get activated, and what can I do to bring myself back down? And that might be where just stepping back, taking a deep breath, doing something physically to discharge some of that. Maybe reminding yourself, I'm here in a safe place. I'm dealing with it, trying to get my kid to put their shoes on. I don't need to get ready for war or for running away from a lion or whatever, our primitive nervous system is telling us is going on, because we code all that the same in our body. So we can use that as, here's an opportunity, to do something to soothe and settle my body, as well as to understand my emotions and be really mindful about, what do I do with that now in this new situation that I'm in. So we can also model that to kids. And even like, if you like the analogy of an elevator, cut out a construction paper, or even draw on a piece of paper like an elevator, and put the floors on there and start to identify, like, use different colored markers for each person in the family. Like, how do Bobby, when you're on the 1st floor, I'm breathing normal and I feel chill and I feel comfortable in my body. And when I'm on the 7th floor, I want to pound stuff and I stamp my feet or I throw my toys around the room, whatever is their, their realization of what happens. Then you've got, stick it on the fridge and you've got a great place to like have some moments of reflection of like, okay, where are we right now? Mom's starting to realize that she's at like a 4 or 5 because we need to go somewhere and I'm feeling the pressure that we need to get out the door. And you're telling me because you just threw your sneakers across the room, you're telling me that you're maybe at a 6 because you're throwing stuff. Even just doing that might be enough to diffuse things enough to have like some reflection of like what's going on. Me, parent, is feeling pressured to get out the door to be on time somewhere. Child maybe is feeling frustrated at shoes that are hard to tie or laces that are knotted, or there's lots of things that can go wrong with shoes when you're small, right?
That's true. That's true. And as you say the elevator, a thought comes to my mind because one of my best friends has a grandson who has I can't even remember if it's been diagnosed. I think it has, but I would not be able to tell you what the condition is. But he just goes from 0 to like 8 like that fast. So it's good to keep in mind that everybody's elevator travels at a different speed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not, and we say that like they go from 0 to 90 and, in no time. There's got to be something in between there. And it might just be, like you said, it's the speed of the elevator. Like, whoop, we were like flying off the handle very quickly. And can you just can you slow it down just the tiniest bit? Can we just have a moment of like, even if it's like, okay, now you're on the 7th floor, we're on the 7th floor. Let's take a deep breath together. Let's grab our stuffed animal and squeeze it really tight, like something to help break that cycle of like, I'm on the 7th floor now, I just do whatever, or I scream and I throw and I whatever tantrum,
Right. Or like you say, identify what's on 0, 1, and 2. And maybe for that family member, that child, we address it just a lot earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah. Can you start to identify, like, even if it's minimal changes, like what's the change between 2 and 3 for this child?
Right.
Between 3 and 4. And then what are our options? Like, that's the other thing. If you put it out on paper, especially with an older kid who can read, you can do this with pictures, but it would require more creativity. And what can I do if I'm on the 2nd floor and I'm frustrated? Maybe I can, because I'm pretty calm on the 2nd floor, maybe I can try a different way of solving my problem. If I'm on the 4th floor and I'm frustrated, maybe that's when I should ask for help. If I'm on the 6th floor, maybe I need to like run laps around the house before I ask for help because I'm too upset that I can't hear what you're telling me,
Yes. I like the idea of the physical exercise too. That helps me a lot. That's why I exercise on a regular basis, is to burn off stress before it gets out of hand.
No, it's good for that.
Yeah.
So then we have the opportunities, like once we identify, okay, this is the moment that I'm getting activated. Maybe you can't do it in the moment, like you're getting on, on the way out the door to get to some place. Maybe there's not a lot of time to figure it out, but maybe then you come back to that in reflection, like what was really going on for me in that moment? Was I truly that upset about my child not putting their shoes on so we could go to the dentist? If it were me, like, I'll full self-disclosure here, probably my actual child getting to the dentist, which I'm thinking about because we have a dentist appointment right after this. I'm like out the door to pick him up at school and get to the orthodontist. It's less about today's situation. If I show up at the orthodontist appointment 5 minutes late, nothing earth-shattering is going to change. Somebody might be frustrated with me. I'm a grown adult. I try not to intentionally be late for things, but if it happens, I can live with that, and it doesn't change my perception of myself or my perception of the world. What probably would get activated for me would be some younger version of myself that doesn't want to be in trouble, right? Like, for sure, that's what would come up for me, because as a grown woman, I can say if somebody's really going to be that upset with me for being 5 minutes late, that's a them problem. But if I'm going to get that upset with myself or my child for being 5 minutes late, that's a me problem. And it's probably a younger me problem.
I see.
That makes sense.
Yes, it does. Catherine made a comment. She says, I love the elevator idea. Do you have advice on helping kids not feel like they are a bad kid for being on a higher floor? Good question, Catherine.
That's a great question. Yeah. I think you just normalize it. that every single one of us has those higher floors, and we'll get on those higher floors. And the language that we use, like, I can see that you're really upset right now, and not vilifying being upset, that being upset isn't bad. It's the choices that we make. If we're going to get into judging them, the choices that we make are going to be helpful to us or not helpful to us. So if I'm on like the 8th floor and I'm like checking stuff at my sister, probably not helpful. I probably will get in trouble for that if I'm a kid, in order to keep people safe in the house. But to explain, like, you being upset, you being frustrated that you couldn't tie your shoes, we'll stick with that. I understand that. I would be frustrated too if every time I was trying to put my shoes on, I couldn't quite get those laces tight enough, and then they came undone and I was tripping on them and somebody was telling me, go tie your shoes. That would be upsetting to me too. And then segue into, what else can we do when you're that upset? Because throwing your shoes at your sister is not an option. She'll get hurt. You care about her. She cares about you. We take care of each other in our family. That's one of our family values. We don't chuck shoes at our sister, right? So like separating out like personhood from action, I think is important. And then, if you really want to stay out of like the judgmental label of that was bad, that was good, maybe staying with that's helpful or that's not helpful might be another way of trying to frame it. So, kids are going to internalize that. And I guess we could sit and argue that hearing that you're not helpful probably doesn't feel great either, but maybe that's a little bit gentler than hearing, you're bad or your choice was bad in that situation. But I would also talk about like, you can share. I've had times when I've been so angry. Share it as it unfolds. It's going to help us as adults to get ourselves like back in check. If we're, if you're driving in traffic and somebody cuts you off and you, I don't know, yell or say something that's not super nice, that's a moment to like take a breath and say, gosh, mom just, mom was so focused on getting to the dentist on time that I let something pretty minor upset me. And that's not really about what happened, because nothing happened. Nothing went wrong. Nobody got in a car accident. That was about me feeling pressure to get to the dentist on time. Something like that. So just talking about it,
Yeah, I like that one. So I have a story that I have shared quite often over the years, but anyway, back when I first was going through the divorce, and my son, who is now has 2 children of his own, but he was in like the 5th grade. And he was angry, I understand the kids, felt like everybody was telling them what to do. Mom was telling them what to do and dad was telling them what to do and the courts were telling them what to do. And they felt like they had absolutely no control. And he was really struggling with, behavior management. And I made a lot of trips up to the school to talk to the principal. And I remember one day, and we were also, I had the kids in counseling, and the counselor, was constantly telling him, I know you're angry, and feeling angry is a normal feeling and a normal emotion. You just need to learn how to manage it. So I was, going through this with him with the counselor, and then we, went up and we're talking to the principal, and the principal kept saying, Josh, you can't get angry. And I would try to, kind of correct it from what I had learned with the counselor. And I would say, Josh, I know you're angry and I know the situation is frustrating to you, but we need to learn how to, you've got to learn how to manage your anger. And then the principal would come back and say, you can't get angry. And so I would rephrase it kind of like, and finally the principal basically said, Josh, you wait out in the hall. I need to talk to your mother. And when he left, she just laid into me. She was so mad. And she said, don't you ever correct me in front of my student. Don't you tell me. And I finally said to her, I said, you know what? I can see that you are as angry at me as I am at you for telling my child that he can't get angry. But the difference here is I'm not worried that you're going to pick up that chair and throw it at me. And you're not worried that I'm going to pick up this book and hit you with it. And I said, we are both angry, and Josh is angry. what we need to do is help him learn to manage that anger, because it's not going to go away anytime soon. And it was really kind of, it was just a funny situation. And the principal and I ended up being really good friends. She actually got transferred to another school when we moved. And I was like, okay, we got to fix this relationship. And we did. We ended up being great friends. But it just, to me, that was a really good example of, I mean, even for me, I learned more than even like when we had sat with the counselor and she would say, Josh, I know you're angry. You need to learn how to manage it. It was a real visual to me, because I was like, yeah, we are angry. We are both really angry at each other, but we're both adults. We're not afraid that we're going to get hurt. Whereas the poor kids in Josh's class, that was a real fear for them, that, that he was going to lose it and do something that was not safe. So, anyway.
Yeah. And I think, we get ourselves in trouble when we say somebody can't have a certain feeling.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Feelings, that's not right. That's the same thing as telling somebody that they are a bad person, instead of saying you're a good person, but what the choice you made was not good. It's labeling them. So yeah. And
then the message becomes, if you can't get angry and then you get angry, now I'm a bad person, right? Now I feel shame, I feel embarrassment, I feel guilt, because I'm not supposed to have this feeling that is a normal human feeling. It's actually a helpful feeling. Anger activates action. So hopefully most of us are in situations where we don't really need that kind of energy to have action, but like, that's why it's there. And if we can, dial it down, like get it from 8th floor angry down to like 3rd floor angry, then maybe that means we confront somebody about, you did this thing that upset me and it's not okay. It wasn't respectful to me. Like, that's probably, like, a lot of times anger is about broken respect. That's why we end up angry. So like, if we can dial it down to either do something about it, that's great. Another tool or another gift I think that mindfulness can give us is if I'm having anger and I can reflect and be reflective about it, is this about my situation here right now, or is this about something that happened in the past? I can decide, like, okay, is that anger useful to me right now? Can I do anything now that's going to change what happened in the past? Or do I just need to peel off what I've learned from that situation? Maybe give myself some forgiveness or some, remind myself that I, in future situations, like if it's about respect, like I'm going to stand up for myself. Maybe my younger version of myself didn't have the tools that, to stand up to somebody in an authority position or whatever it is, or didn't have the communication skills to like articulate, when she was upset, why she was upset. So applying mindfulness to emotional experiences can also help us decide, is this something I need to act on now, or is this just information I need to like process for a bit?
And I love how you mentioned, how you were talking about talking with your children and teaching them, because the only way that they can learn this is through observing really us. Everything we do, our kids are learning from us. So I love how you mentioned, I mean, when we do lose it, to then to talk about it and go, oh, wow, you know what, I really, that triggered me, or even just, I mean, sometimes if it's just, what, that was not a very adult-like way for me to behave. And, this is what happened. I'm sorry about that. And I think it's important we do that with our kids too, that we let them know. I mean, there are times when we're imperfect parents,
Absolutely.
and when we parent imperfectly, it's okay. And it's important to acknowledge to our kids that, what, I didn't handle that the best that I could have. And I'm sorry for that. And let's rethink this. I know there are many times that I would even say to my kids, that, okay, your behavior was not okay. and neither was mine. So, let's think through this again. And there will be a consequence for your behavior. But you know what? I've got to get myself under control before I can think what is appropriate there, because my reaction was not a very good reaction either. It was not okay. So let's really look at this.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay.
Real quick, we had somebody new join us. If you want to chime in, you're welcome to. If you want to put it in the chat, you're welcome to. I just wanted to let you know that. So I think Ingrid, did you have something you wanted to share? If not, that's okay too. Just letting you know we're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think, Shirley, to piggyback on what you said, like modeling for our children how we take ownership for our actions and how we apologize, like that's a huge skill too. And then, there's the opportunity right there to go back and say, when I picked you up from school and I was rushing you into the car and I didn't listen to your story about what happened in science class because I was focused on getting to the dentist, I realized that was hurtful to you and that you felt unappreciated, and I'm sorry for that. Can we have the reset button, or what do they call it, the easy button on the Staples commercial? Right? But like we need like that reset button of like, when you're ready and when you have forgiven me, I would love to hear the story about what happened in science class. And our mileage will vary about how well that goes and if people are receptive to it or not. But I think if you keep doing it, you keep modeling it, kids are going to look to us, their parents, for that information and like those scripts and those narratives of how you handle problems with other people. So yeah, so all feelings are okay. It's what we do with them that's helpful or not helpful. Knowing like what you need, and if you're really keyed up, like being able to check in with yourself and determine, like, do I need to go discharge some energy? Am I so angry right now or so scared right now or whatever that I need my physical needs to be met first so that I feel safe and I feel regulated before I can have a conversation and problem solve. So, for some kids that's, especially like teenagers, like go take a warm shower, hot shower. And when you feel relaxed, like come back and we'll figure this out. We'll talk it through together. For little kids, maybe it's put on like dance music and like everybody get their muscles moving before you figure it out, like burn off some of that energy. Or it could be like doing, a somewhat distracting activity for a little while, as long as you return to whatever the original issue is and don't just use the distraction as a sweep it under the rug kind of strategy. So, yeah. So in terms of parenting, then I think we can be like really mindful of our own states and when we get activated and try to tune in with why we're activated. And is that a today, present moment issue, or is it, some other situation, that we're responding to? And then, really model and teach those skills for kids as well.
Absolutely. My brain's going a million miles an hour thinking, why didn't I know this when I was raising my children? It makes sense, but I especially like the idea of saying, hey, I am so angry right now, or whatever it is, whatever emotion is, that I need to take a minute before we deal with this, because I don't want to do or say something that's going to make it worse.
Right.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
And that's another thing I said to my kids so many times, because I do the whole consequences. It's, with behavior, if they don't follow family rules or whatever, there is a consequence. And I know that needs to, relate to what they're doing and all of that. But when I'm angry, I can't even think about those things. I mean, my kids know, in fact, that it's kind of a joke around the house is you don't want to make mom angry, because the consequence will be she'll take something away and then she just won't ever remember where it is. So
that's awesome.
Like it's taken away for 24 hours, but it might take us weeks to find it, because when I'm angry, I don't remember a thing. So yeah, there were many times when I would say to my kids, okay, there will be a consequence, we'll think about it after I calm down, because I don't know what it's going to be right now. I mean, again, in the moment, I want to say you're grounded for life. And we all know that that's not the way to, that's not going to happen. So yeah, there were many times when I would say to my kids, there will be a consequence, and we'll talk about this when we're back in the right frame of mind. We'll talk about what an appropriate consequence would be. But the other thing, building off of what Megan was saying, and how she wished she had known these things when she was parenting and stuff. This is the other thing that I feel like, I think we probably did know a lot of this. I feel like parents know a lot of what they need to do, but in the moment, I mean, we get so busy parenting that we forget it, or we get our most, our frame of mind gets thrown off, like if we're angry, and we don't remember in the moment. So that's what I really love about the tips section of our adventures, because that's what they are really about. I mean, to teach, yes, if you don't know the principle, it's there to teach the principle in a really, casual, comfortable, safe place. But it's also there just to remind us, so that every day, just like I have my, my tracker on, my task tracker that reminds me, okay, do this and this and this. I mean, those daily tasks that I need to do every day. The tip section is there to just remind us on a daily basis that, oh, that's right. Let's let the kids take the lead. This is a great opportunity where I can let the kids take the lead here. Oh, let's promote their creativity. This is a great opportunity where I can encourage the kids to be creative. And it's really just there as that reminder of the things that parents already know, but we just get too busy that we forget. So that's what I wish I'd had as a parent.
Tip section. Yeah.
I feel like with all of the
A
different
tip screen in the head, right?
Yeah.
Oh, your heart rate just went up. Here are some tips.
Yeah. And I wish that I had in my brain, oh, your heart rate went up. Why is this happening? Become mindful about what's going on in my own head.
And that's okay. And that's bridging from like when we do formal meditation practice and formal mindfulness, sit quietly with your eyes closed, focus on your breathing. That's great. And often that feels good, but the goal is not to feel good. The goal of that is to strengthen that skill so that when you're out there living, in the words of John Kabat-Zinn, the full catastrophe life, like the full catastrophe life is the kid checking the shoes at you because they're frustrated that they can't tie them. That's when you need to do a deep breath, which is going to remind the nervous system, like, okay, she's not drowning. She's not running away from a lion. She's actually physically okay. And it's going to like remind your conscious brain of like, I'm going to be intentional about how I respond to this. This now is not a problem. This is an opportunity to try something different. It's an opportunity to teach my child how to manage frustration, and quite honestly, for myself, if my choice was between having children that understood how to handle frustration and having to apologize to the dentist for being late, I will take that over being on time with angry kids.
I agree.
I'm happy to say we're running a little late. I'm sorry about that, and have
Success.
a child that learns how to regulate themselves, right?
Yes, that's fabulous. I can say that I was a much more patient parent with my youngest than my first. I was a young mom, and I must have learned a couple things on the way, and then kids are each different, and but I'm, as a grandparent, it's even easier. And of course, because I have, more experience, more life experience, but, and I'm not with them 24/7, but yes, what my point is, practice does help.
Yeah. So I have a funny story. When my oldest, he's almost 21. When he was little, he was probably like 3.5 he was probably about 3 based on the house that we lived in. He was upset about something, and he had, we didn't realize it yet at the time, he had like chronic ear infections. So he always had fluid buildup in his ears. So his speech was hard to understand until he got tubes and everything was fine. But it was hard to understand what he was saying, and he was upset, and he just kept saying to me, say defef. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, kiddo. finally I realized he was telling me to tell him to take deep breaths.
Oh,
That was like the script of he's upset. I'm supposed to say, take deep breaths.
that's awesome.
Oh, that is
I
darling.
was like, okay, I guess I'm doing something okay. Maybe he's a little bit too rigid about it, but yeah, we start modeling from such an early age. This is what you can do, when your body feels dysregulated. But in order to do that, we have to be like mindful of what our own processes are, and in that moment. And I think like then this is another whole potential discussion, but in the mindfulness literature, there's also a lot of literature on mindful self-compassion and other compassion. So moving from using mindfulness to understand when we're struggling, and by extension, when other people are struggling, like to recognize that as kind of a universal piece, like a common humanity piece. So we all struggle, might be different things, but we all struggle, right? And then to tap in with like, what do I need right now? And I think this can help both thinking about our child, what do they need right now, but also thinking about ourselves, what do I need right now? If you're having like a chaotic, witching hour, 5 o'clock homework, trying to get dinner on the table, all the things happening at once, what do I need right now? Do I need to remind myself this is temporary? Do I need to remind myself if dinner is 10 minutes late, nobody really cares? Do I need to remind myself that I can, ask my partner for help if that's an option? That I can have a conversation with my friend at 8 o'clock, when the kids are in bed, to help myself relax or to get some support from another grown-up. But just, noticing, okay, right now I'm struggling. What is it that I need? What would I tell a friend? How can I support myself? Are there unmet needs that are getting activated by the situation around me that really have nothing to do with this situation? And if that's the case, maybe I attend to the situation at hand and then figure out what are these unmet needs that maybe I need to figure out a way of trying to meet them.
If we could each do that for ourselves and then in turn for each other, what a beautiful community we'd have. You know what I mean? What a nice, calm effect we'd have on everybody around us. That'd be awesome. Just awesome.
But with a child, whether they're little or a teenager, I mean, the words we choose are going to be different, but the approach might be pretty similar. To really like meet them. Like, I see you are struggling right now. What do you need? How can I help you? What can I do for you? Do you want to just sit next to me? Do you want me to put my arm around you? Do you want to, if it's a little kid, do you want to be on my lap? My kids are too big for that now, but do you want to be close to me physically? Do you want space? Do you want to talk? Do you want some time to be alone? Again, unless these are like these life and death timing situations, we usually have more time to sort these things out and manage them than we might think we do. So like each of these situations, if we're aware of what's going on and how it's unfolding, it just becomes an opportunity to connect in a different way, and maybe to model a different way of managing emotions and like keeping ourselves regulated, which kids are also going to, kind of mirror how we regulate ourselves.
I like that. I like that you said that we can say to each other, I see you. Shirley, can I do this?
Yes, go for
Okay.
it. Absolutely.
It's funny because I picked right up on that, and we have a campaign for teens and preteens for the month of May. Just started this morning. It's called the I See You campaign, and it's for kids in the Bear River, Davis, and Central Utah public health districts. They can download the Goose Chase app. They can participate in the I See You, not I see letter C. Yeah, I See You Discovery Hunt. Search with the code SEE, and they can give us input on a summer program for teens, and they can win prizes. So anyway, good segue. Thanks, Kim. I really like that.
You're welcome. We didn't plan that either. That was just
It was. I'm just like, a little light bulb went off. I'm like, oh, yes.
And Megan,
Yeah.
please introduce the bigger umbrella of the I See You campaign, the suicide prevention and the grant.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Dr. Dwyer, we would really appreciate your votes and to help us bring some funding here for suicide prevention.
Yes, we are one of, there were 4,000 applicants and we are one of 200 finalists. And at this point in the grant process, it's down to voting. Now they're going to hand out 100 grants and it's based on voting. So we have a really good chance. We just need everybody's help. You go to supportprevention.com. It might take you a minute to sign up the first time, sign in, log in with an email and a password or your Google account or Facebook account, and vote for us every day between now and Saturday. So it's not very long. It takes 10 seconds once you get set up. Yeah, we would appreciate it to help us get a grant to further our suicide prevention efforts.
Yeah, and this all falls under the bigger umbrella of I see you.
I see
I
you.
mean, Megan has the smaller hunt going with the youth, but we are,
This is part of
want
it.
to do a full, for everyone. We want to have our youth and our adults really seeing each other and letting people know the good that they see in them. Because a lot of times when people are really struggling with those, suicidal ideation, it's because they feel unseen. They feel like nobody sees them, nobody cares, nobody will miss them, so we really want to promote that whole concept of seeing each other and letting each other know the good that we see in them.
Yeah.
So
Yep. And like you said, Kim, if we can become more mindful about what we need, then yeah, I think it will definitely extend to other people. And you can practice that. Be mindful of where you are, and then be mindful of where everybody is around you. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
all right.
Good.
That was a fast hour. I love this topic. I really do. Catherine, Ingrid, anyone else okay. Does anybody have any more comments or questions before we kind of wrap up today? Give you a second. And if you don't, that's okay. All right. Well, let's see. Catherine says, thank you. This has been fabulous info. Awesome.
Great. Great.
Okay. Then
next week we're talking about, of course I don't have it in front of me as I said that, so remind me.
neither do I.
I think it was conversations, mindfulness when communicating with others.
Yeah,
I know we have like that and relationships as
yes, relationships is stuck in my head because I don't know, it's just more pertinent to in my life right now, but yeah. So yes, communication next week at noon. You'll be on with us at noon, right, Kim?
Actually, I'll be as close to noon as I can.
Okay. We will
I had the dates wrong on something and I actually have 2 more weeks of my other commitment. So
if you need to make it 12:15, then we will figure out something else.
yeah, we'll do, I love having everybody kind of report what their experience, and then we can do a mindfulness activity. So we'll gather at noon, and then Dr. Dwyer will join us at 12:15 for the conversation.
Yep, sounds good. Okay. All right, everybody. See you next week. Watch for the replay later on this afternoon.
have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.